For you serious students who sense the reality of what General Lee did in the aftermath of the Battle of Second Manassas, put yourselves in his shoes and think the problem through. Ignore the narrative the historians offer you. Ignore Gallagher and his crowd and think it through yourselves. You were on the Manassas Plain. Heaps of the young Americans that came together violently here are lying dead in the fields. The enemy has fled the scene in panic and is now hunkering in the forts encircling Washington. What will you do? You cannot advance on the offensive against Washington. The strength of your army is not strong enough to penetrate the line of forts any more than Grant's immense army, 3 times the current size of yours, was able to penetrate the defenses of Petersburg. If you advance to the forts, the best that you can expect is to stand in front of them until the enemy, its army reorganized and strengthened, sallies forth to engage you. And then you must retreat. You cannot stand much longer at Manassas and wait for the enemy to appear in your front again. The countryside for 30 miles all around has been stripped entirely of crops and farm animals. And the single-track railroad that connects with Richmond 90 miles away cannot be depended upon to support your needs. Even if the Richmond government had the capacity to keep trains of supplies running to you with the tons your army requires to survive. You have no choice but to move somewhere where your army can rest, refit, recruit, reorganize unmolested. But where? If you fall back to Culpeper or Gordonsville, you might wait behind the Rapidan for the enemy to appear in your front. But, as at Manassas, neither the countryside nor Richmond can support you. The effort your army has made to reach Manassas has exhausted your government's resources. Look at the map, students. Think the problem through. What will you do if you are in General Lee's shoes? The Shenandoah Valley is the only place in Northern Virginia where grain and hay for your animals can still be found in abundance, and the farms still support flocks of sheep, herds of cattle, horses, pigs, chickens. If you decide not to fall back to the Rapidan, this is the place you must aim for. But if you march your army directly across the Blue Ridge to get there, the enemy will see the march for what it is. You are retreating. You are giving up the offensive. And the enemy will gather themselves and march to follow you, which means that you will have no choice, despite your army's weakness in numbers and the absence of supplies, but to stop and confront the enemy in a battle. So what do you do? You do what General Lee did. You move to the valley indirectly by marching north across the Potomac to Frederick. Doing this signals to the enemy that you are confident, that your army is strong, that you are not retreating. You are advancing on the offensive, placing yourself 30 miles from Washington. And these facts tell the enemy you mean to advance toward Washington and meet the enemy in a battle when they confront you. The consequence of this, you know, will be that the enemy will gather itself and come out to meet you. But the movement will be cautious, wary. They must advance on a front that covers the roads you can take toward Washington, the River Road, the National Road, and the road toward Baltimore. But you know, too, that you cannot move toward Washington. Your army is too weak. The men wearing rags, thousands marching barefoot, emaciated, worn out. And you know, too, that you cannot confront the enemy on the line of the Monocacy River at Frederick. You do not have the numbers to cover the river from its mouth at Sugarloaf Mountain to the Jug Bridge. The enemy can cross the river above you and below you and converge upon your little army in the fields around Frederick, open, rolling farm fields as far as the eye can see. No, as the enemy advances upon you, you must retire into the Cumberland Valley and either cross the Potomac into the Shenandoah Valley, knowing the enemy will be encouraged by your retreat and press after you, or you must make a stand at a place your small army has a chance of defending in a battle. And so now you focus on searching for that place. And you find it at Sharpsburg, behind the Antietam. But you see immediately the fatal fact that the enemy's garrison of 10,000 soldiers and 50 pieces of artillery at Harpers Ferry blocks you from concentrating there. Engaging in a battle with a force superior to yours brings with it the great risk that the enemy's numbers may overpower yours at some point on the battle line, that a breakthrough will occur, and that your ability to resist will be overwhelmed. Panic sets in, and your officers lose their grip on the soldiers, and flight takes hold, and the whole mass of your army is running toward the only ford of the river behind it that is available. Now there will be no time, no delay in action, but a mad rush to get across the river. And what happens if the Harpers Ferry garrison, as the battle at the Antietam is unfolding, moves the 12 miles between that place and the bluffs overlooking the ford? The enemy plants their batteries on the bluffs on both sides of the only road leading to the valley from the ford, supported by their infantry, and the rifle volleys and artillery fire cut your men down in droves as they wade frantically into the river. And behind them, unlimbering on the crest of the hill behind Sharpsburg, the enemy batteries from Harpers Ferry join them in the action. And now your men are being cut down between two fires, trapped in the bottom of a bowl with no way to escape. It will be the end of your army. You have no choice. You recognize you must either retreat into the Shenandoah Valley through Sharpsburg as the enemy comes within your reach at Frederick, and march without respite up the valley and cross the Blue Ridge and move toward Richmond. And the whole world now knows the seceded states cannot win their independence by force of arms, that the enemy will soon be again pounding at the defenses of Richmond, that Virginia will be out of the war by the spring. Or you must somehow eliminate the enemy garrison at Harpers Ferry. Here it is that General Lee divined the scheme of tricking the enemy's army commander into giving him time to maneuver the wings of his little army in a manner which gave him the chance of concentrating for battle at Sharpsburg with his line of retreat across the river secure.